Hello and welcome to this overview of performance-based hiring. My name is JJ. I'm the Director of Operations for the Adler Group. Our overview will be led by Brian Johansson. Brian is the COO of the Adler Group. He's also a master trainer and a senior consultant. So without any further ado, Brian, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Thank you, JJ, and welcome everyone to our performance-based hiring introduction and overview. What I hope to deliver in the next few minutes is some challenging ideas about how we hire and the methodologies behind that. And I'm going to do that by introducing you to a concept called performance-based hiring. Last month a book came out. I would highly recommend it. It's called The End of Average, and it's by a professor from Harvard, Todd Rose. In this book, he challenges many of the assumptions we make about how we hire, how we promote people, how we identify talent, how we actually look at the world around us. And he calls this the end of average because we have a lot of things that we're comparing people to that we really shouldn't be comparing people to. About halfway through the writing of the book, he discovered The Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired by Lou Adler. And he saw in that book the implementation of a real methodology that allows us to actually get beyond this concept of how we've been evaluating talent in the past. So download the book, take a look at it. I know it will challenge some of your beliefs about a lot of the things that we do in this industry to hire top talent. Now, performance-based hiring is the brainchild of Lou Adler. Lou's been an executive recruiter for 40-plus years, and he's written multiple books about hiring and audio tapes. The original book was Hire With Your Head. The current book is The Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired, and those books really focus around a methodology. It's really an integrated business system for hiring top talent. I'm going to introduce you to the concepts behind the book right now. When we go in to companies and we audit hiring processes, and when Lou started doing this early on in his career, and by the way, Lou's background is engineering. He got an engineering degree, and when he first became a recruiter, he started to look at recruiting as a process that should be repeatable and predictable. And he said, when recruiting works well, what are the conditions? When it doesn't work well, what happens when it doesn't work well? And out of that came the 4 core ideas that make up the basis of performance-based hiring. I'll introduce you to those now. The first has to do with how we spec jobs. We call this performance-based job descriptions. And rather than designing them in terms of skills and lists of requirements, when hiring went well, companies were putting out jobs that were great career moves, they weren't lateral transfers, and they were focused on what the person needed to do, not what they needed to have. So that's the first foundational principle. We spend quite a bit of time in both of our courses for managers and recruiters discussing how do you actually do that. The second concept, equally important, is a simple realization that top talent, good people, don't act the same way in the talent marketplace as average or below average people. They don't do the same things. They don't jump through the same hoops. They won't apply to jobs online. So the concept is if we're going to source top talent, we have to be where that talent is, we have to do what that talent does, and we have to be there before anybody else. We call that talent-centric sourcing. We'll talk briefly about that in a minute. Then once you find the talent, you've got to interview them. And interviewing needs to be consistent. It needs to uncover the things that we need to know in order to discover what top talent is. And we have a 2-question performance-based interview that allows us to do that. And then finally, if you're good at sourcing and you're good at interviewing, but you can't close somebody, you're going to lose top talent. We call this integrated recruiting. Most companies think linearly. They start the process by, okay, we're going to do a job description, we're going to source candidates, we're going to screen them, we're going to interview them, and we're going to decide if we like them, and then we'll recruit them. Well, that's the exact opposite way of how we need to recruit. Recruiting needs to be integrated into the process from the first touch of the candidate, the first contact. And once again, we call that integrated recruiting. We have some metrics that we look at. One is a slate of candidates given to a hiring manager from a recruiter should only include B+ or better candidates for the job. And that manager should only have to see at a maximum 4 candidates, interview 4 to make a hiring decision. If they're seeing 6 or 8, the recruiter's done that search twice. If they're seeing 12, 3 times. I don't know of any recruiting organizations or recruiters who have the bandwidth to redo searches. We just don't have the ability to do that over and over again. So we want to get it right the first time, and there's a process by which we can do that. That process is performance-based hiring. So let me delve into some of these components quickly and just give you a high-level overview of what I'm talking about. The first has to do with the job. Think about the job descriptions that you have out on the marketplace right now. If you went to a website and looked at what's posted, my guess is 99% of the time or 95% of the time, it would be what I call a having job description. It would start with an obligatory paragraph about how great your company is, and then it would say, you must have this and this and this and this and this, and we want you to multitask, and we want you to be smart, we want you to be a team player, and by the way, here are some of the things you might be responsible for in the job. That's a having job description. It's not a career move. It doesn't describe why the job is valuable. It doesn't even describe what you want the person to actually do in the job. So one of the things that we do is focus on getting managers and recruiters on the same page in terms of two things. One is, what does the person need to do to be considered successful in this job? That's what a performance profile is. And we spend time in the course getting managers and recruiters to understand that, how to have that discussion in the intake meeting or before you even go out to the marketplace. And the second component is, why would a top person want this job? We call that the employee value proposition. What will they become? What does their future look like? What's the strategic reason for them to move? What's their intrinsic motivator? If a recruiter and a manager understand what performance looks like on the job and why a top person would want this job, now we have the basis to attract, assess, and recruit top talent. It's a fundamental principle of performance-based hiring, and it is totally different from a having job description. And I would tell you this, we will never compromise on performance. If someone can't do the job, we won't hire them. But there are many people out there who are performance qualified who don't necessarily have all the skills that we put in the original having job description. Those people are highly capable of doing the work. They may or may not apply. Many of them won't apply. But here's the difference maker. It is not what you have that matters. It's not the degree you got. It's not the PhD you have. It's not the years of experience. It is what you do with what you have that counts. And we're going to focus our interview and everything we do in the process on that doing component. That's why defining the performance profile is so critical up front. And it's a totally different way of thinking about hiring. So foundational, define the job. Now we've got to talk about where we get these candidates from and what's the behavior of these candidates in the marketplace. Now think, this is just one of many slides we use to make the case that top talent isn't functioning the way we think they may be in the talent market. Even active, underemployed or unemployed people, 57% of the time they're getting their job by networking, 46% for employed active, and then it's 63 and 64% for the tiptoers and the passive, fully passive candidates. Think about that in terms of a strategy to source candidates. If you go out with an active candidate strategy, you're going to address between 5 and 20% of the market, and only 31% of those are the people who are you're going to be seeing. You're leaving a lot of good top talent on deck. You're not even tapping into them. One of the things we think about and we ask recruiters to identify when we teach them in the class is, think of the last 2 or 3 placements you made. What did the slate of candidates look like that you presented to the hiring manager? Was it mostly people who were active, who applied from your website, or was there a good mix? Were there more people that you networked in passive candidates than there were active candidates? And that's a better sourcing mix if you happen to have difficult positions to fill, and we'll address that in this next slide. Now, one of the questions we ask recruiters, and we ask this on our training, the positions you're filling, is there a surplus of good talent in the marketplace, or is there a scarcity of talent? I will tell you 90+% of the time, those recruiters say, no, it's scarce talent. There's not enough of them to go around. There are a lot of companies that want that talent. We're competing for that talent. Very seldom do they say there's a surplus. Then if you ask, what are you doing to find that talent? Most of the time they're using a surplus sourcing strategy when they're really trying to go after scarce resources. That funnel you see on the left-hand side is the scarcity path. And there are 3 or 4 things you have to do at the top of the funnel that if you have a surplus of candidates, you don't have to do. And as a recruiter, your skill set has to be fundamentally different. Look at the active bucket. The skills you need as an active recruiter, active candidate recruiter, you find people who apply, you weed out the weak. It's a very transactional sale. Hey, I've got this job. Do you want it? It's here. It's got this salary and so on. You can go out with ill-defined lateral moves, having job descriptions, and the focus is on cost and efficiency. how quickly can you get people in the seats? Passive candidate recruiting is completely different. You have to attract and nurture candidates. It has to be a consultative recruiting approach. You have to offer career moves, and the focus is on your return on investment and the quality of hire. In order to address those two talent markets, it requires an entirely different recruiting set. And your recruiters have to be capable, and they have to have time to do it. Now, these are the results of people who have attended our performance-based hiring for recruiters course. And if you're looking at your recruiting team and you're asking, are they delivering the quality we need? Are they productive? Do they have enough understanding of the job that they can actually have conversations with passive candidates? Are they sourcing better candidates? Are they capable of interviewing these people? These are the results that our recruiters have achieved. Probably the most telling one is the one at the bottom. My managers rank my performance as a recruiter higher as a result of implementing performance-based hiring. 95% say that. 78% say they're sourcing better candidates. The quality of the candidates I send to hiring managers is better, 98%. If you're a recruiting leader and you want to test this theory out, you are welcome to audit Module 1 of performance-based hiring for recruiters simply by sending us an email at info@louadlergroup.com, and we'll respond and we'll give you access to Module 1 of the course. You can come as my guest and enjoy the course and understand at least the first module, which is a good one to come to because we set up the rest of the modules in that module. So take advantage of that opportunity. Now let me shift gears a little bit. Performance-based hiring is about hiring top talent. Top talent has certain attributes, things that differentiate them from average or below average talent. We've identified 6 of these things on your screen here. Consistently exceed expectations, coach, manage self and others, leadership, good problem solving and thinking skills relevant to the job, flexible enough to deal with the culture, the manager, with change, and they get it done, no excuses. Now I want you to think in terms of interviews. One of our goals in the interview is to assess whether a candidate has done these things. They're capable of doing these things. And so we have an 8-step performance-based interview process. Let me ask you this question. If I were to put a video camera in your hiring manager's offices and we just let it roll through the interviews that they're conducting, would you be pleased with what you see? My guess is there's a range of behaviors that are happening in those closed doors when your managers are conducting interviews. Some of them are pretty good. Some of them are asking questions that they shouldn't ask, illegal questions, and many of them are asking questions that are completely irrelevant to the role in the job, and then they're making decisions, and they'll get in debriefing sessions with the rest of the people who interviewed the candidate and say things like, I don't think they're fit. Well, why? I'm not feeling it. We want to avoid that because we want to teach a methodology that makes sense. Interviewing is not rocket science. And while I can't delve into all the 8 steps of the interview, I can delve into the most important question of all time and just introduce you to this idea. We call this the MSA question, the most significant accomplishment question. And it really, the question is very simple. Tell me about your most significant accomplishment, something you've done you're particularly proud of. Then we teach interviewers to deep dive using fact-finding questions. Describe what you actually did. What did it look like at the beginning and the end? What were the biggest challenges? How did you overcome those? What was your process of success? What was the biggest problem you had to overcome? The biggest decision you had to make? Where did you personally take the initiative? Of all the work you had to do that, what did you like the most? What was the part of the work that you really didn't like, but you still did? When all was said and done, were you recognized for having done it? And we'll spend 10 to 12 minutes on one accomplishment with deep fact-finding questions, and what we'll get is direct evidence of the competency, skills, behaviors, comparable results, their achiever pattern, the cultural. We'll get all of that out of a single accomplishment. And then what we teach in the course is how to utilize that in different periods of time, multiple accomplishments, different periods of time, job-specific accomplishments, individual contributor accomplishments, and team accomplishments. I would rather have a manager or a recruiter get 3 or 4 accomplishments and dive deep into those and ask just that question and ask deep fact-finding questions than having them ask 20 or 30 questions at a high superficial level and get superficial answers across the gamut. So let me make this offer. If you're a business leader, meaning you're a line leader, you've got a team reporting to you in the business, and you want to audit Module 1 of our performance-based hiring for managers, we will cover this, and you will see how this works in more depth. and just send us the email at info@blueadlergroup.com to do that. This is the essence of a good interview. And if you'd like to learn more about that, I encourage you to come and audit the first module and get some experience with it. Now, we teach a lot of methodologies for engaging with passive candidate recruiters or passive candidates. And one of the things recruiters understand or they learn in the course is that when you first engage a candidate, they're using short-term criteria to decide whether they even want to spend time with a recruiter or a manager talking about a career opportunity. And it's criteria like what's the title, what's the company, what's the location, what's the comp. And the problem with that is if you actually fast forward and look at a candidate who's making the decision, a serious decision to hire on with a company, their criteria is not that. It's much more long-term. It's, is this a real career opportunity? Is this a job that I really want? Can I make an impact in this role? Can I learn from the hiring manager? Is this somebody who I really want to be working for? And do I like the team? Compensation is, you know, 5th or 6th on the list. And so a great recruiter will be able to shift the decision-making criteria in their first discussion from day one stuff, the criteria to engage, to the criteria to accept. We call that bridging the gap. This is what the essence of a career discussion looks like. A great job, and it requires an engaged hiring manager, and it requires a strong recruiter. So one of the things that we teach is how can we get managers and recruiters to actually do this and understand how you get passive candidates to engage with us at this level. Now, we're not about just training you. If any of you have taken a training class, you know the stats on how much is forgotten and how little time. So one of the things that we do is every training class that we teach, the members of the class get tool sets, and they get access to the tools for the year. They have 24/7 membership for 1 year. There is a certification process for recruiters, which we highly recommend your recruiters go through. It doesn't cost any more than the cost of the class, but it increases the learning and implementation factor dramatically. They get documents including interviews, scripts, and all of those types of things, wizards and tools to do different aspects of recruiting. And all the classes are recorded. And if you come to a class, whether it's live or on-site private, you can go to your learning center and attend any of our online programs for up to a year again, or the program that you actually paid for again for up to a year, and refresh your capabilities as you go along. Our goal isn't to just train. Our goal is to give you tools to help you become effective, and these tools are in depth. The eRecruiter's Handbook has hundreds of scripts associated with recruiting passive candidates and active candidates and how to post things, and it just gives you a world of information that allows you to engage with different candidates. How do you do a phone screen? How do you engage with candidates? All of that is in the eRecruiter's Handbook. So let me summarize. The Adler Group really only does 3 things. We train recruiters. We have performance-based hiring for recruiters. We have a certification process for that. We train managers, performance-based hiring for managers. We have additional recruiting courses. We have an extreme networking using LinkedIn Recruiter that we offer. It used to be the LinkedIn Masterclass, but we've changed the name of it because this is really about leveraging LinkedIn. If you're a recruiting leader and you're wondering, am I getting value out of LinkedIn Recruiter, I guarantee it's not the tool, it's how your recruiters are using it and the skill sets they apply to that. We also create custom interview tools, and we consult around hiring process reengineering. So once again, if you'd like to engage with us, if you're a recruiting leader, audit module 1 of performance-based hiring for recruiters. Send us an email, info@blueadlergroup.com. If you're a business leader and you want to think about your managers going through training to get better at interviewing and assessing and recruiting top talent, send us an email at info@blueadlergroup.com. And if you have a particular hiring challenge that maybe you thought about as we were going through this course and you'd like a short 15-minute discussion about that with one of our senior consultants, email me directly, brian@adlerconcepts.com, or call me at the number you see on your screen, and we'd be happy to engage with you and see if there's something that might make sense as an intervention or something that we might suggest to help you in that situation. Thank you for coming through our overview. We hope to see you online at one of our future classes, and we wish you well as you hire top talent into your organizations. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brian. And thank you for spending the last few minutes with us. As Brian mentioned, if you have any questions about anything we've covered in the last few minutes or about other products and services offered by the Adler Group, please feel free to send us an email at info@louadlergroup.com. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.